Hi everyone, today we're making little stationery sets. These will have notebooks, pens and rulers. Perfect for your Jillie bunnies or your mice. So let's get started. So we're going to start with the pencils, and these are simply just made with toothpicks. So you can use a craft knife, or I just like to use some wire cutters to cut them off. Tend to just guess the length, because it doesn't really matter with pencils. They can be all sorts of odd lengths. You will note the end goes flying. So you may want to cut it into a container and then it'll catch the end. Once you've got your pieces cut, all you need to do is just give them a little sand to make sure the edges are nice and smooth. And make sure there's no splinters. Okay. If you don't have sandpaper on hand, a nail file also works. So when it comes to painting them, I like to use a simple acrylic. You only need a small amount. So I'm just going to pop a little bit on some paper. And to hold the pencils, I like to use these little clips. You can find them in the sewing aisle. They're normally used for quilting, but I find it really easy to then hold and then paint. So for the end of the pencil, you're just going to paint where it up to where it starts to curve. So I'm just going to go all the way around. Paint some on the end. Like that. And then once it's dry, you can take it out, flip it over, and you just want to paint a little bit on the top. Leaving a nice bit of wood in between so it looks like a pencil. And that's it. You have pencils, and you can use as many colours as you like. So for the rulers, I just simply use a piece of popsicle stick. You're just going to want to cut it down with a craft knife or something till you get the right size. You of course then need to give it a sand, get rid of all the rough edges, and then once you've done that, you just need to put some marks. Now I find using a ballpoint pen works best for this, because if you use a gel pen or something, it will often bleed into the wood and you'll get messy lines, whereas a ballpoint pen will just give you nice simple. And so now we're on to the books. So for the paper, I just use regular old printer paper, and I've cut these down to a 1 by 1.5 inches. I use inches even though I'm in New Zealand, because I like to use my old quilting rulers and they're all marked up in inches. So you need as many pages as you want for the book. And then on just for the first page and for joining to the cover, I like to use a piece of coloured paper or printed paper. And then for the cover, I use a slightly heavier piece of card in funky colours as well. So for the pages and the inside pages, we're just going to go and fold them all in half. Let's just line them up nicely. Doesn't matter too much if they're not perfect, because we can trim them down once we get to the end. I'll just do this. When you're folding these ones, you want the pretty side to the inside. For folding the cover, I like to fold mine around my ruler. I just line it up on a line, bend it so it folds nice and square, bend it over and fold. There will be a bit of excess, but I trim this off at the end. If you don't have a ruler you'd like to use, you can also just fold it one way and then unfold and fold it over, whichever way you like. It doesn't really matter. I always like to guesstimate things rather than measuring carefully, and then that too will give you a spine fold. Now is a good time to see how many pages you need to fill up your spine. I know when using my ruler that 6 inside pages, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and my 2 inner covers, 1 on each end. Fits nicely within my book. So that's how many pages I'm going to use. If you want a fatter spine or a skinnier spine, you can just make, when you're folding it this way, you can just make it smaller. Now that we've got all our pages folded and stacked, we're just going to stack them up nicely so the spines all sit flat and they're flat at the edges. And once again, I like to use these clips. So I'm just going to clip them on here. Oh, that's not very square. Let's tidy that up a little. That looks a bit better. Clip 1, clip 2. So when it comes to gluing, I like to use just a wood glue. You can use Mod Podge as well, but I feel like the wood glue just likes to give it a bit more strength. You're just going to cover the folded edges, which will become the spine. You want quite a, because you want it to be sturdy when the book's open. And then you're just going to let that dry. Once it's dry, take the pages off and glue the cover on. For this I do just use Mod Podge. I like to put some little bits of cardboard in between the top pages, just so, and I can get it open, just so when you're gluing you don't get glue everywhere. Put some glue on, and you can go right up to the edges. Going to insert this into the page, line it up as best we can. Take that one out at the bottom. Now we can do the top page. Again, close it down, lining it up, and then you just want to pop it under something. So here's one I did earlier. As you can see, the cardboard's a little long. I could probably make the cardboard shorter in the first step, but I find this way I can tidy up any extra edges that need it. So I'm just going to line it up with my ruler, with the thing, and grab a craft knife and give it a trim up, and that way all the pages look nice and even. And so of course you don't just have to use plain pages, you can use pattern ones. These are pages out of a colouring book that I've used, or this one I'm halfway through making for my son has old book pages in it, just to make it a little bit more interesting. So I hope you like this tutorial. If you have any questions or would like to see something else, please let me know. Bye.